Hello and welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 144 on Wednesday the 8th of November 2017. Hello, I'm not Alan, I'm Andrew, and I'm flying solo this week. Unfortunately, Alan is in a place where the internet does not reliably exist. So buckle up, Eeyore's taking you through the news. And this week we will be discussing, finally, PSA owns all the bits of Vauxhall Opel. Now we're on a 7-month streak in new car registration figures, and not in a good way. The Transport Minister is confused about how autonomous a Tesla is. And an F-Type poppy car. But so first we will get on with the follow-up, which is that PSA has finally now got all the bits that go to make up Opel Vauxhall. So this last element is mainly the financial side of it. So they've dotted I's, T's, crossed T's and I's, and done everything else they needed to do. And now the Vauxhall Opel financial wing will work alongside the existing PSA financial business. So now just the small matter of making Opel Vauxhall viable again. They did announce, or PSA announced, that 2020 is a target for, and using quotes here, a positive operational free cash flow combined with an operating margin of 2%. So no pressure there, everybody involved. Okay, good luck with that. But seriously, we do really hope that they do know what they want Vauxhall and Opel to be. I'm still very confused as to why they went for Vauxhall Opel, which seems to be the same as what they've got, but hopefully they are cleverer people than myself and to a certain degree Alan. They've got a plan and they will execute it, and it's clear because many jobs rely on that in this country. Now it is that time of the month. Unfortunately, you don't get Alan's rendition of the top 10 here, I'm afraid, but it is the new car registration figures, and it is new car registration figures I saw yesterday off motoring websites talking about new car sales. I cannot believe that is still happening, but anyway, put that to one side. There's plenty in this week for me to moan about, so I'm not going to moan too much about that. And it's bad news, basically. Down 12.2%. To 158,192 units. Diesel took a battering, where that was down 29.9%. However, alternative fuels took a jump of just under 37%. So on year to date, Alan, it's nearly there, nearly at your magical 10% at 4.6. Maybe there's going to be a couple of big pushes in the coming months, and you'll make your ambitious year claim that you made. But what was bad for diesel is good for alternative fuels, obviously. It's just so depressing, really, frankly. Mike Hawes of SMMT has gone on to explain why they feel that this has been another drop. There is the reasons of declining confidence from consumers and businesses to do with Brexit and everything else, but there is also this lack of clarity about what's happening about low emission and diesel cars and how they will be penalised, if they'll be penalised extra to petrol and all these other things. So they're saying, SMMT is saying that people are not buying them for those reasons, and you can understand why people don't want to go and buy a diesel, because you read the papers and you watch the news and you think you're about to be lynched for owning a diesel. So, well, some help is needed from a clarification point of view, but I would suggest that which I presume the motoring industry is doing, that you need to look at what the cities are saying, because they seem to be driving this more than the government. So let's go on to the top 10s, and we will start in October 2017 with number 10 and the Ford Kuga. Number 9 is the BMW 4 Series, and that's 2,558 units. Number 8 is the Volkswagen Polo. Number 7 is the Audi A3. Number 6 is the Kia Sportage. Number 5 is the Mercedes-Benz A-Class at 3,390 units. Number 4 is the Nissan Qashqai. Number 3 is the Ford Focus. Number 2 is the Volkswagen Golf. So that can only mean it has regained its crown. It's back at number 1. Your firm favourite for the UK, the Ford Fiesta, at 7,256 units. So obviously the new model is kicking through the showrooms now. So that's good news for Ford, because it's been a couple of months since the Fiesta was up there. If we look at year to date, going from 10 to 1 again, 10 is the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, 9 is the Mini, 8 is the Mercedes C-Class, 7 is the Vauxhall Astra, which wasn't in the top 10 at all, 4 units for the month, 6 is the Volkswagen Polo, 5 is the Corsa, 4 is the Qashqai, 3 is the Ford Focus, 2 is the Volkswagen Golf, and 1 is the Ford Fiesta, which is nearly 21 and a bit thousand units, or 20,500 units more than the Golf, which is quite a lot. So there we go. As ever, let us look at what is becoming the spreadsheet of doom. And to try and cheer myself up slightly, I'm going to discuss manufacturers who have done better this month. So we'll go alphabetically, and we'll start at the top. Alfa Romeo up 29%, Aston Martin up 70%. That sounds great on a percentage wise. It's not massive numbers though. I mean, we're talking 87 cars for Aston Martin as opposed to the 51, and it's 293 for Alfa Romeo as opposed to 227. But you know, a plus is a plus. We're taking it at the moment, and wherever we can find it. Infiniti nearly 32%, so that's up from 119 to 157. Lotus 30%, so that's 6 more from 20 to 26. Maserati 84, nearly 85%, so that's up from 79 to 146. Seat, this is one of the few larger volume manufacturers that have done well. They had a 16.16% rise from 3,528 up to 4,098 cars, so that's very good for Seat after early on in the year it wasn't so good. And Toyota is the other main manufacturer that's had a big jump percentage wise, which is 13.32. So it was 5,332, but this time it ends up at 6,042. Now, the less good. There is more of the fuchsia colour on my spreadsheet than I would hope, but is not unexpected, to be honest. Volvo down 18%, so from 4,027 to 3,302. Another bad month for Vauxhall, nearly 35% down. I mean, that's... PSA have got their hands full trying to arrest this. It's almost nosedive is the way it's going at this rate. So they were 14,949, and they actually registered 9,740. Subaru had a bad month, drop of 61% from 256 to 99. Smart, after several months of doing quite well actually, they dropped nearly 36% from 902 to 580. Renault, 26.5% down, so that's from 4,300 to 3,200. Peugeot down 12, Nissan down 30, Mitsubishi down nearly 15, Mini down 34, and that's with one of their vehicles in the overall top 10 for the year. MG down nearly 25%, Mazda down 25%, Jeep down 64%, Jaguar, well, Land Rover was down slightly, but Jaguar, that's a big drop of nearly 39% from 2,981 to 1,827. Fiat, 27.5%. DS, again, another bad month, 35%. Dacia, 28%, nearly 29%. Citroen, I hate talking about Citroen and DS because I don't want any of these manufacturers to do badly, to be honest. I want them all to do well because it creates competition. But Citroen down 14%, so that's from 3,515 down to 3,016. Maybe the relaunch of the Cactus will help. Hopefully, anything. BMW, this is a bit of a shocker. BMW down 18%, from 13,541 to 11,056. Bentley down nearly 23%. And that is all the major drops and rises. There's others there that have either done a little bit well or a little bit badly, but overall, not good. Not good at all. To show how bad new car sales is at the moment, Pendragon has announced a underlying profit before tax for 2017 of 20% down. So from 75.4 million down to 60 million by the end of the year. And that's despite revenue growth and huge revenue growth. So, it is clearly a very tough market out there this year. Now, I came across an interesting article because it suggested something else, which I had heard quite a bit in when people were discussing American market, but not over here yet. And that is that maybe the sales and therefore new car registrations are dropping due to finance. The finance is it's perhaps not the golden goose that it was thought to be, because residual values are apparently not matching what people were expecting when they bring back their car, whether that's their own fault or whether that's the market. That's irrespective, but they're not matching what they thought that the car was going to be worth at the end of their finance lease. Also, people are taking it out over a longer period to be able to afford cars perhaps a little bit out of their financial grasp unless they stretch out the payments. So the regular turnover of cars is not happening as perhaps the industry felt it would be on a 2-3 yearly cycle. People are stretching out between 4 and 5 years now. So there's a link to this article because it's interesting because it offers a different perspective on what possibly is the cause or another reason for the issues. Because we've said it on this show before that we do feel the uncertainty over Brexit is making people keep their hands in their pockets now, across society. But also there is uncertainty over emissions and diesels particularly and all the rest of it. So companies in particular with diesels are being very wary before taking out longer term lease deals, etc. So I can see that it's probably just a combination of all these things, but it's interesting to hear someone suggesting that perhaps PCP is not the golden goose that it was thought it would be, or it was for some time. Right, moving away from that depressing news, we go to talk about the London to Brighton Veteran Car Run. That fabulous event where the incredibly old cars are taken and taken down, and this was a slightly different route this year, but run down from London through down to Brighton, and people get to see all these fantastic old cars zooming along at speeds varying from 4 to maybe 14 mile an hour. But unfortunately this year there was an accident, quite a serious one, 6 people were injured in it. There was a requirement for someone to stay in hospital overnight. Hopefully they do, because they were on a 1902 car, and hopefully they do recover and everything's all right. But that's a shame to see that the whole event was a little bit marred by that. But it was wonderful watching it via Twitter, because there was loads of people that I follow that were involved, and it's great to see the varying struggles these people had, whether it was how cold they were to whether their vehicle would actually make it to the line or not. So yes, go and click through to the link for the Royal Automobile Club, which has a link to a full gallery, so you can see all the weird and wonderful vehicles that were involved. So I thoroughly recommend you go off and do that. Okay, more good news for new cars. But Tesla had their third quarter earnings call. Not a good call for Tesla and Mr. Musk. Unfortunately, Tesla posted $619 million loss for the third quarter, which is apparently their worst quarter for financial results yet. So, wow. Not a good time for Tesla currently, especially with the bottlenecks and the various mudslinging that's going on about whether it's self-inflicted bottlenecks or not on the Model 3 production. Mr. Musk also stated that the aim of 5,000 units a week is probably not going to happen until towards the end of the first quarter of 2018, so that's knocking back the ambitious targets that they had for the Model 3. But if you'd like to read more about the financial results, go and click the Autocar link that is in the show notes. Well, this is the time of the show where Alan and I like to make you feel a little bit guilty, just enough so you think, oh, I really wish we could help these chaps out. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do that. There is the way that you could go to the Motoring Podcast website at motoringpodcast.com and click on the orange Become a Patron button that's on the front page. And that will take you through to the Patreon website, where you can donate a monthly amount from as little as $1 upwards. All of it helps us massively, no matter how much you feel it may be little. It makes a massive amount of difference to us and enables us to go and do more things, bring more content, involve more people, that sort of stuff. So if you can do that, that would be just so gratefully received, and it would be such a fantastic thing to help us out. That would be awesome. If you can't help us in a financial way like that, then you can always leave us a rating or review, preferably on iTunes, because that's the main centre that sees it all, because that's the biggest podcasting platform. However, you are able to do it on whatever podcasting platform that you choose. It's easier for Alan to say that than me. So if you could go and leave us a rating and or a review or a review, that would be brilliant. Preferably 5 stars, but we're open to other stars as well, even though we might cry quietly about that. So yes, I will now move away from the guilt zone and go to talk about the Transport Minister, Chris Grayling. He gave a speech about driverless cars, and he told an audience, perhaps a smidgen optimistically, that autonomous cars will be driving on UK roads in 2021. He did go on to outline the positives of autonomous vehicles, particularly how it will help people whose needs are not being met by current transport models and transportation that is on offer to them. And he was talking specifically about the elderly and people with extra needs to get around. But he also discussed how he'd driven a Tesla autonomously And then, we'll gloss over how that's illegal in this country, to take your hands off the wheel of a car. That's not legal, but this is what he said he did. So he got confused at what was actually driver assistance in the Tesla in this country. He got confused at what was legal. And apparently he got confused about what the driving seat was and where he was in comparison to that, because the Department for Transport then came out to say, oh, no, what he actually meant was he was in a car when a Tesla driver demonstrated this. I said, oh, okay, right. Easy mistake to make. And then Tesla came out and said, well, actually, the car was parked up and the driver showed what would happen if the car was moving along. So we have three conflicting stories about one simple event from, organisations that should be able to get the truth out properly. But this goes back to the rant I had last time I was on the show, that actually Alan took over, that we need to be talking about this in a very, very careful manner. We need to be very clear about what autonomous is, what driver aids are. Manufacturers need to be very clear. Those of us talking about it need to be very clear. And those of us who are helping to write bills on this stuff need to be very clear what this is as well. It does not fill me. You heard me complain about how I didn't think the bill went far enough anyway. So, I'm not exactly stunned to hear this sort of comments coming out from the person who is heading up and presenting the bill to Parliament. So we all need to be very clear, very careful, very cautious and very conservative with a small c in how this stuff is discussed. We need manufacturers to ask for detractions if somebody misrepresents it in too positive a light. I was listening to the latest episode of Autonocast, and Ed Niedermeyer was mentioning this, and I was thoroughly in agreement with him on this. It's companies are very happy to point out when stuff is reported wrong that makes them look negative, that in a sort of negative light. They also need to step in and ask for a retraction and clarification in public when it is something that is misleading, but which could be seen in a positive way. That we have to really get a grip of this, because it's going to cost people's lives. I mean, we've seen it with idiots getting in the back of Teslas a couple of years ago because it said autopilot and they thought they didn't even need to have to be in the front seat and virtually holding on. The technology's advanced a bit since then, so it's very difficult for them to do that. But we've got to get the message through to people that it's not a robot car. There are no robot cars, let alone they are not legal in Britain or most countries at the moment. So let's dampen down the enthusiasm a little bit with some reality and make sure that people are discussing this in a good way. Connected with this is that the insurance industry have come out with 10 criteria they feel is needed to define what an autonomous car is for it to be insured on British roads. This is not list of the week, do not worry. We have a decent list of the week. It's not all doom and gloom this week from me. I know it's a little bit sad pasture, but it's not all doom and gloom. Truly, according to ABI, a truly automated vehicle adheres to the following. Number 1, naming. Automated capability is clearly described. Number 2, law-abiding. Complies with UK traffic laws and the Highway Code. There's issues with that. Number 3, location-specific. Functionality is limited to specific types of roads or areas via geofencing. That's, if we're going to use the levels, that's level 4, that's not level 5. So I would argue strongly that that is not fully autonomous. That is autonomous in a specific tiny area. So yeah, and I have problems with level 4 because as it is specific areas, the people who are in the vehicle need to be very, very clear where those areas are. So how that information is passed on to the driver, the owner, of what is an area for level 4 and what isn't needs to be really, really thrashed out. That's if we can get to the point where a vehicle can drive at level 4. Number 4 is a clear handover. Transfer of driving controls follows a clear offer and confirm process. Number 5, safe driving. Vehicle can manage all reasonably expected situations by itself. Yet to see that be improved. Number 6, unanticipated handover. Adequate and appropriate notice must be given if the vehicle needs to unexpectedly hand back driving control. That's very tricky. Number 7, safe stop. The vehicle executes an appropriate safe stop if unable to continue or if the driver does not take back control. Number 8 is emergency intervention. Vehicles can avoid or prevent an accident by responding to an emergency. Number 9, backup systems. Safeguards will step in if any systems fail. Okay. Number 10, accident data. Records and reports what systems were in use at the time of an accident. That's going to be interesting, as we know some manufacturers, or maybe just one manufacturer, does not share their data with anyone. So that is already a sticking point in America. You can see there's many conversations going on about how that happens. I think it's a little bit sad that the insurance industry is the one driving this rather than manufacturers or the governments. You know, if we can have more people involved in this, please. If we can have some sensible things, because I have issues with most of that, which I would describe as, you know, maybe most of what they're saying, it doesn't make it an fully autonomous vehicle anyway. But there we go. So you can click through on the link of the Autocar article and have a little look through of that. All right, still sticking with autonomous vehicles though. Toyota have been talking to Autocar, and I found this interesting because they were discussing how they've been working on developing autonomous driving functions. Of course, AI is mentioned all the time. What was really interesting for me was that they were talking in a very pragmatic and a very conservative with a small c way about all this technology, and they were saying that they will not implement or allow the customers to have any of this technology unless they are absolutely certain it works. And the main driver of that was the risk to reputation, which is understandable. It's very heartening to hear a manufacturer trying to dampen down expectations and try and get everyone to just calm down a little bit and not be too excited. So I thoroughly recommend that you go and read that article by Jim Holder. Links as ever in the show notes. Hot off the press today, though, the EU has set some new targets. I'll call them new because these targets seem to have just angered everybody, really. What they are calling for, and these are only proposals at the minute, but what they're calling for is between 2021 and 2030, a fall of 30% in CO2 emissions. Already, the 2021 target is for 95 grams per kilometre across a manufacturer's lineup. So this new 30% would bring it down to 66 grams per kilometre. Now, the initial reaction from the motor industry is, wow, that's hard, that's too tough. And the initial reaction from environmental groups is that's not remotely hard enough. So they've probably done something which is realistic, yet will push the motor industry then, looking at the reaction from both sides. Do go and have a look at that. But anything that we've said it before, even us on this show believe that clean air is a good thing for us people who have to walk around near cars. So it's only going to drive further down. I mean, all the manufacturers are talking about how they wish to sell this many million electrified vehicles by 2025. So will it be as tough for them as all that? I'm not so sure. That may be just some initial knee-jerk reaction, or it may be just some trying to give themselves a bit of leeway to do it a bit more comfortably. But it's, who knows whether it's actually going to be 30% or not, because now the lobbying begins. So we'll see how that goes. Right, now moving on. Jaguar revealed the F-Type poppy car, one of which has been mounted on the side of its Castle Bromwich production plant. So anyone going on the M6 should be able to see that. The other of which is going to be the pace car at the Race of Remembrance. Now these poppy cars have this fantastic livery, which carries the words of the John McCrae poem of In Flanders Fields, and under different lighting conditions you can see it. There was people from the Mission Motorsport who helped design and then fitting it to the F-Types. It's currently the pace car or safety car is currently doing a tour of the UK, and it will be at the Anglesey circuit from the 10th to the 12th of November, which gives me the chance to say again, I will be there from Saturday first thing, hopefully from first thing Saturday, and I'm going to be there on Sunday as well, hopefully all the way through to the end, which I'm really looking forward to. So if anybody who's listening to the show is going to be there, do hit me up on Twitter and let me know, and hopefully we can meet up and watch a bit of racing and and just so I can say hello and thank you for listening as well. That would be awesome. But I can't wait to see this. I've not been to it before, and I cannot wait to get there and just see what the people get up to, what the racing's like, and in my incredibly small way support what Mission Motorsport do, because it's a fantastic charity. Fantastic charity. Yes, right. Now, list of the week. And Major Gav is back again. There wasn't going to be a list of the week, but he came out with a good one today. Not only is it the weekend for Race of Remembrance in Anglesey, but it is the NEC Classic Motor Show. Now, it may be that the other half of the Motoring Podcast is at the NEC Classic Motor Show. I'm not sure yet. I cannot confirm that at the moment, but no doubt he will mention it if he is going, so do keep an eye out for him if you're going there. But what's Gavin's list, more importantly, getting back to that, is the retro bargains you can drive to the NEC Classic Motor Show. Now there are some crackers in here. I'm not going to run through the full list. I'm just going to highlight some of the ones I quite fancy, which is the Renault Safran, which is found for £325. The Mazda 323F with the pop-up headlights. I love the pop-up headlights. Also in here, amazingly, he's got a Ford Escort, which just looks awful. Yes, Chris Pickering, I'm talking to you. It is awful. There is a Volvo 740, which just looks fantastic. There is also a Mazda MX-6, which is found in there. Citroen XM, which looks a bit tired, and probably a little bit optimistic on the £1,000 mark, but not as optimistic as the Vauxhall Nova with the visible rust at £1,195. But my absolute favourite is the Honda Legend that he's got there, even though that does look a bit tired in places as well. Yes, that would be awesome as long as I had enough money to fuel it. So click through to the link on the show notes and have a look through there. And this podcast accepts no responsibility if any of you weaken and buy anything from the list. So that is your own fault. Nothing to do with us. We're just enablers. So we're at the and finally stage. And according to Bob Lutz, the future is not bright nor orange. Well, thank you very much to everybody who sent me this article, which there was many who did. Right up my alley, and is actually one of the possible futures I can easily see occurring for us. But Bob Lutz, who is the ex-vice chairman of General Motors, and he was head of product development. He also worked at Ford, Chrysler, BMW and Opel. But he was talking about autonomous vehicles and how he sees this being a massive change, but he doesn't see it being a good thing, really. And one of the things he can see is that further down the line, when autonomous vehicles are more, if autonomous vehicles, but he's presuming fully autonomous vehicles are on the road, and when they get to, as he describes it, between 20 and 30%, governments will notice that, or the way that accident statistics will be reported is that human drivers are causing virtually nigh on every single accident. So then they'll sit there and go, well, the easiest way to stop the accidents is to ban the human from driving, and we will be legislated out of being able to drive cars. This is not a cheerful and finally, but it is, I think, an interesting article which I do recommend that you go and read, and I think is a fitting end for Eeyore's Sad Pasture episode, and you can all clamour for Alan back to join and counter my gloom. Perhaps I wasn't helped with some of the news items this week, but yeah, it's not been a great period for cars and stuff at the moment. So there we go. That's the end of the show. Thinking of parish notes, though, tomorrow night we're recording a special edition on the Tokyo Motor Show because that looked interesting and had some fun and nice looking cars. So looking forward to that. We'll get that out as soon as possible. I'm away at Mission Motorsport. Then I'm away on Monday at another event to do with cars, so I'm looking forward to that. Alan has been away recently on a couple of things to do with cars, which you may have seen if you follow him via Twitter or Instagram. So we will be discussing those. I'm not sure whether they are getting special editions or whether they will be part of the shows, but I can't wait to catch up and find out what he thought of the various vehicles he's been out in. And yes, I think that is about it for this week. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us and give us any feedback between now and the next time we are on the show. If you follow @Motoring Podcast on Twitter or Instagram, that's one way to get in touch. The show is also on Facebook, and you can get in touch with us via the contact page of the motoringpodcast.com, which is the hub of all our activities. Remember that we do also have an Audible offer, which is with the Patreon at motoringpodcast.com/support. And just a quick reminder to say, if you could please leave us a rating and review on iTunes, that would be great. It really helps. It makes us more visible and helps others find it who will hopefully enjoy the show as much as you do. The best way to get in touch with Alan and to complain that he wasn't on this show and you've had enough of me is to search for @AJP Bradley on Twitter. If you want to get in touch with me, search for Cracked Windscreen on Twitter and you'll find me there. So that just leaves me to say we'll be back next time. But until then, he hasn't been Alan Bradley and I've been Andrew Clues. Safe motoring.